Actually, not I, but Remco Schreuder of the Dutch Ministry of Agriculture, and the user of the type of information what we are doing for the case study will start a presentation, because I think this user perspective is very important for modeling work. So Remco, can I give the floor to you? And if you give me a signal, I will pass on the slides. Thank you.
I will use the magic word. Next slide, please. Okay. So to start with, I'm indeed a civil servant, but I'm not working for the ministry. I'm working at a paying agency, but closely with the ministry. And being a civil servant working on a national level, that's one reason to get started. The minister wants something. And this something was in 2018 to develop a rating system which could be linked to key performance indicators being used or being developed by the private sector initiatives, and also addresses area-specific objectives. And of course, taking the goals of the CAP into account. So next, please. At least that was the idea. This rating system should support farmers in transforming towards more sustainable practices and to provide comfort to test them. One eco-scheme for all farmers with a focus on arable and on dairy farm. So this ambition was quite high. How it turned out will be shown later. The key performance indicators, for instance, were not ready, and they are still not ready. So next, please. So the rating was directly related to the CAP objectives: climate, soil, water, biodiversity, and landscape. The payment was based on points. At least that was the idea, but it turned out not to be possible. So the payment is based on the value of activities within the eco-scheme. And we ended up with 3 payment levels, 80, 100 and 200 euros per hectare for the whole farm. And this payment was paid when all thresholds for the 5 CAP objectives were reached. So next one. The eco-scheme which was implemented in 2023 was a bit different from the design or wish list from 2018. An important step between 2018 and the implementation was the stakeholder involvement, especially the 7+1 CAP pilots. They gave a lot of information and direction. So we use pilots actually more often. So even before we started with the collective approach for the ASCM, we also had quite some pilots where we used them to see how it could work. And also for the next CAP, new pilots will start in the first quarter of next year. A few of them will be dedicated towards the eco-scheme and the key performance indicators. So next, please. As an example of co-creation, the eco-scheme we have at the moment was actually designed by this pilot. After a first draft, we worked together with them to get it within the framework of the legislation. And of course, most of our pilots are run by farmers collectives. So next one. Co-creation and calibration. Well, co-creation is more co-design, not only with practice, but also with science. So there's a strong need in Parliament to have scientific proof. As for the eco-scheme, all activities are being evaluated by the University of Wageningen. The points are determined by experts, and also the value are calculated by Wageningen. So, and even before implementing the design was also tested with a group of farmers in group discussions, but also individually together with an advisor, more or less like a very simple DCE, what we just saw in the previous presentation. But again, politics also influenced the content of the eco-scheme. And to support farmers in their decision-making, a web-based tool is available. So next. As for the midterm, a new features was the calibration, which will be explained in the second part of this presentation by Roel. The result of the calibration were again tested with a group of farmers in group discussions and also the DCE again. And we also developed an app to support farmers in their decision making. So next one, and that's my last slide, the lessons learned. So using pilots is very helpful when designing new complex interventions. It also creates ownership at the target group. And for me, the combination of using models and this test in practice is a very useful combination. And I wish we had done this in 2022 before implementing. So thank you, Roel. Next is for you.
Okay, I will then take over and add a few observations from the modeling side without going into the technical details. And this is work we do as a team with my colleague Marcel van Asseldonk, Anna Gonzalez, and Co Dasela. And here a slide which elaborates a bit on a point Remco was making before. Farmers can choose activities, and by these activities they can score points on climate, soil and air, water, landscape and biodiversity. And here you see a brief overview of the type of activities they could choose and the contribution to points. There are thresholds they have to satisfy, minimum thresholds for each of these 5 objectives. So as Remco was already indicating, there's a lot of the scheme looks a bit complex, complicated. On the other hand, it is aimed to contribute to specific objectives and make this also quantifiable and remuneration based on the performance of farmers. But say if you, for example, see the matrix here with the points on a 5-point scheme, that requires all information that came from scientific expertise and exploration of studies. So here you see the activities, the objectives, the impact scores. Now, if you look where we could help and further contribute in the context of the Tools4CAP project is to have a short look maybe to this figure. Here you, just as explained below, if you look to the lower bar here, that you see the activities the farmers can choose from. And the question is, we would like to better understand this process. Because, one, of course, interesting element in such a scheme is what will farmer adoption be? And there were early signals that this system is quite complicated and that adoption may be low, because it now actually it turned out to be very high. So it worked out differently from what the initial perceptions were, and partly that can be because of there was a good communication around it, and the eco-scheme simulator farmers could experiment and test their choices. But this website tool, web-based tool, is actually a kind of a relatively simplified calculator from what money you could extract by certain choices out of the eco-scheme. But of course, farmers are doing these activities. When they select such an activity, it's fitting into their other regular farm activity. And there can be interaction effects. So we would also like to understand more about why farmers made certain choices. And to better understand that, it was the idea to place the farmer choices in the broader farmer perspective. Because if you do a certain action, it could be that it lead to a reduced yield or less roughage production, and that you have, for example, to purchase more compound feed or something like that. We would like to have a better idea about this integrated perspective, also to better assess farmer choices and farmer adoption. Now, here a summary slide mentioning a number of issues and aspects of the eco-scheme. They came already along in the presentation, but what you could do is look to a bit to pros and cons, or advantages and disadvantages, and look from a different perspective. As Remco already said, as a government you have certain objectives, but you would also like the farmers to support this and also to participate. So you need to have an eye on both perspectives and on the pluses and minuses there. And this raises several questions. I think the Dutch scheme is very interesting and challenging. I guess it is performance-based. It fits in that sense in the whole philosophy of the new CAP, which is more that the new delivery model, which is more based on results. At the same time, there are questions. Is it too complicated? What should specific thresholds be, etc. So there are a number of questions arising, and with the modeling tools, we try to support our government in, say, providing further insights on this. Now, what we have done so far in the context of the Tools4CAP case study is that we worked on this eco-scheme simulator, the tool which is also it's mainly it's more or less the tool which is also on the website, and we did several experiments and checked with with changing parameters and farmer choice behavior. We observed past farmer choice behavior. We tried to get better feeling about which parameters maybe could calibrate it a bit. Yeah. So, for example, as I already said, we had a lot of high rate of adoption, which meant that actually there was a problem for the budget that was not sufficient. Our solution was found in the end, but maybe from a government perspective, you could say, okay, maybe we should try to get a bit more value for money. But how should you do that? So with that simple, say, eco-scheme simulator tool, we made a number of suggestions, and that was later used in a farmer pilot to further test that. And the next steps we are going to work on is this seeing this eco-scheme in the whole farm context. And for that, we use a so-called farm dyne model, which optimizes the eco-scheme activities and has also the regular activities in a detailed way. So, for example, roughage, harvesting, mowing, the animal production activities. And a third step is that we say, okay, it's not only that the eco-scheme should fit in the broader farm context, but these farmers are also reacting to market signals. So, for example, if the milk price goes up, as we have seen quite good prices for agricultural products, partly due to maybe inflation and what happened in the world. But it could be that, say, if these prices go up, that farmers say, oh, now we are no longer interested in a number of the eco-scheme activities anymore. So we would like to get a bit more insight into the sensitivity of the eco-scheme choices, say, also for market conditions. And that layer, say, will be added by looking to using a model which is called Actionable, which is actually simulating market conditions, which could also simulate market conditions on a specific kind of CAP scenario. And we could then translate that to the farm model, and then by that say, see what the impacts could be, how sensitive farmer choices are for changes in market conditions. That's a bit what is foreseen, and I think now we are working on that, and I think that's the core of what we are doing, and maybe I should close here and leave it for the discussion. Yeah, thank you.